Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Firefighters podcast, where we seek to develop, inspire, and motivate the world of the emergency services operator through a series of wide-ranging conversations. Now, before we go any further, just hit that rate, follow, or subscribe button on whatever platform you're listening to. It's a key performance indicator for us and helps us reach even more people. Now, here's what we've got for you today.
So, Mark Andrews, committee member, came to the committee in 2015. I've been assessing for NBAC since 2009, we think, because I've forgotten.
Yeah, Phill Sanders, so part of the committee now as well, but been with NBAC since 2011. Been assessing since 2012. Yeah, dropped on the committee and been helping organise for the last couple of years as well.
13 years you've been coming to this?
Yeah.
Let's start there. Why on earth do you keep coming to this?
I suppose where I started, Mark and I were both in training together, both BA instructors, and Dean Baker, one of the original people to actually start part of the NBAC, back in 2008.
Yeah.
A lad broke his leg in our team.
Okay.
And went, Phil, you need to fill in. You what? Okay. I mean, like weeks' notice, hardly any practice. Yeah, okay, boss.
There wasn't a choice.
There wasn't a choice.
You were voluntold.
Yes.
But we did do a deal. I'm not happy to be involved, but next year I'm an assessor. I would like to get involved in assessing. So yeah, of course. Yeah, no, so we came.
So what was it pitched as? As in when you were like, there's this thing going on, we basically get together, and what did you think it was going to be? Because I struggle describing things when I talk about UCRO or Firefight Challenge events or NBAC, because you don't want it to. It's not elitist. And also, the pass mark in many services, my words, not yours. I personally sometimes say the pass mark's like 60%. Like, I feel like we don't encourage people to be their very best selves. That has to come from, someone said to me a little while ago, they were like, your problem, Pete, is you think you're in training to make great firefighters, because he used to get really perpetually frustrated with things, as I'm sure we all do. And he says, you're not there to make great firefighters, you're there to make safe firefighters. And he said, if they want to be great, they'll do that of their own volition. That's not up to you. That's not in your control. And to be fair to the person, it was actually a lady that said this to me. And I was like, yeah, that's a fair point. If you want to be great, you've got to volunteer to come to stuff like this. You've got to seek feedback. You've got to have that humility to want to get better all the time. But what did you think this was going to be when you were first told about it?
30 minutes of hard graft is the honest answer. I think first off, because he dropped me in straight. It was the BA team leader, so not even the sort of the less physical roles really, but he described it as 30 minutes of go and treat it like a real job.
Okay.
And with a ethos we've always stuck with, and put yourself up against teams across the country, see where you're at. He said you won't come away without actually having learnt something and improved as a firefighter, and that's exactly what's happened.
So where were we at? Let's just connect some dots for people. Where were we at in terms of NOG obviously wasn't around then.
No.
What were we aligning to?
Still TB197.
TB197. Because
we didn't go
that turned into NOGBA.
OGBA,
sorry.
Was 2014 by the time that
2014.
went on.
So what were we thinking? We were elbow deep in the Swedish method back then, I'm guessing, or what we thought it was.
Yeah.
Our lucid interpretation of it. How have you seen things evolve over the years? And like when you came in then, you have that kind of echo chamber where you're all nodding at each other, but secretly you're thinking like, I'm not sure this is the best way to go about it, because like John McDonnell always says, we created Mark II pulsing robots, and we forgot what it was we were actually trying to achieve with it.
This episode is brought to you in partnership with Godiva Limited. Godiva is one of the world's leading providers of specialist equipment for emergency services market. Renowned for innovation, quality and reliability, Godiva produces a comprehensive range of fire pumps, including vehicle-mounted, portable, and their cutting-edge integrated total water flow control system, SAMFlows. I've been using Godiva my entire career as a reliable pump on the fire ground. It is such a crucial element of a successful firefighting team that you want to empower your crews with the very best, reliable, quality product. Reach out to our partners by checking the notes in the podcast. Now back to the show.
I think Mark will surely chime in, but we've seen it sort of blossom as a sector for both the assessors and the teams.
Yeah.
Because we got together, obviously, quite a lot. We certainly back then we run a few now. We run regional runoffs, so it wasn't just once a year. So actually, it was a real opportunity to get the instructors together and actually push things forward. And we definitely developed a working relationship with the South York Service, West Mids, and a few others to really push our service forward in that that respect.
It was down, again, I think, looking at the people who were pushing it initially. So Dean Baker had come from West Midlands.
Okay.
So they got together with West Yorks and South Yorks. And that
West Mids has always had a good reputation for BA. I don't know how they perform at these personally. I don't know the records of it, but
they've got a good record here.
Yeah,
you know, they've got. I did my TAT event instructors at West Mids, and their training facilities is actually not huge.
No.
But it's very, very well laid out. It's a very good one predominant building where they do several of their scenarios, and they really, really are. And they seem to have not carte blanche in like spending money, but carte blanche in what the instructors want to do. I wouldn't say they're laissez-faire with decon or anything like that, but they're very much, we can do anything you want to do whilst we're here, and we'll talk about what we think we see, rather than massively prescriptive as sometimes you can see in organisations.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think when Dean came across to us, that link in with West Mids got huge.
Yeah.
And we started doing a lot of stuff with them in terms of regional runoffs. So our teams would go to West Mids and do a runoff to decide who was coming to nationals. So the West Mids teams would select their top team.
Yeah.
And then Hereford and Worcester would send 2 or 3 up, and we'd select our top team the same day. And they'd run it over a week or sometimes 2 weeks, because there was quite a lot of interest from West Mids, obviously being a bigger service.
That's what you want, that sort of regional element.
Yeah.
I want to cycle back for 1 second, because I think it'd be really interesting to hear, like, what was both of your first interactions with BA as recruits? Because kind of let's cycle back to where you are now. I mean, all the travels, all the courses. We haven't going to name names or services or anything like that if you don't want to, but like from the things that you were taught, and again, everybody taught with the best of intention with the knowledge they had at the time. B, the things you then went on to teach, and now thinking, oh wow, I had such conviction on that for so long before I'd seen or learned differently.
Yeah, I mean, mine's definite.
When did you join?
2002.
Okay.
And I did my training with West Mids. I'm in Hereford Worcester, but did my training with them. And Phil Castleton, I will name him because unfortunately he's passed away, bless him.
Yeah,
was my BA instructor, and he really instilled BA as an absolute fundamental for me, and I've just had an absolute passion for it since. You know, I've just got some proper, really good memories of BA and just learning my craft, because they put you through 2 weeks or plus more than 2 weeks at the time of just drill after drill after drill.
What was your first time in it? What was your first time in a fire? Because I remember we were speaking to. Oh God, his name's going to escape me. He retired as a chief of somewhere, and now he works with the NFCC, and I think it's Hunter Apparel. Can't remember his study name, but he said like it used to be, but this was the cork helmet days. You know, they'd bring you out in the middle of the night, and there's a fire on the 3rd, and they'd walk you up the stairs, get you down on your knees, get you crawling around. Obviously, with no sets back then, and that sounds very romantic to people. Idiotic, stupid, and unnecessary to us now, perhaps. Although I get people would have got an appreciation for when it feels hot behind the ears and all that sort of stuff. That wasn't my first intro. I didn't do anything silly like that. But what was your guys' first time in? Were they still doing heat and exhaustion, sort of stress and acclimatization wares back then? I think some places have dropped that, you know.
Yeah.
And I think it's important. We'll actually come on to that at some point.
I joined a bit earlier, but I joined on call. So I joined an on-call station.
I joined on-call first.
Yeah, in 92. So back in 92, you basically carried around a couple of foam drums.
Yes.
In a heat.
There was
humidity.
foam drums they were either empty, full, or half full.
That's it.
And there was 2 benches in the middle of the room for us.
Yep.
You go round in a circle, and then when you came back to the door, an instructor would either ask you your name, what day of the week it is.
That's it.
And then when
Up
you
a
got
ramp,
down
down
to
the
whistle, if you could get down to whistle, you would then go out, adopt the entrap procedure,
Yep.
breathe it all. Is that what you did?
Yep.
Yeah,
Exactly so.
I think a lot of places have dropped that because some see it as unnecessary.
Yeah.
Or it's a bee sting. It's not a bee sting. I always call it PPE appreciation now, because you need to understand your own tolerance. Because how do you know what your tolerance is if you haven't gone near it? And this is a training environment. This is a safe environment where you can practice it. Because I don't want you to realise it the first time
When you're
in the back end of Paul's hair world or wherever, you know, and I'm not suggesting that person was not cognizant of their abilities, but I want you to know it now, and you to go, no, I've had enough.
Yeah, I mean, mine was definitely. They took us down through the heat layer, so they took us down through a level.
Into the basement.
Yeah, just gave you an appreciation of that, and then you did the round 2 cribs. Do a lap, tell me your name. You know, make sure, just give you that appreciation. It wasn't a beasting in the slightest. It was all about appreciation of heat and, like you say, your PPE really.
You guys know a lot more than me, and again, we're not going to name any services, but as a percentage, what percentage of services do you think still do that? Do you think most do it? Maybe I'm on my own. We don't do it anymore.
I think it's potentially a lot of services do it, but they don't do it in that traditional format.
Okay.
So they will expose recruits. I suppose we expose recruits a lot to the heat and things like that through the CFBT route now, and the sort of the demo containers.
But a lot of places don't have them. This is what I'm saying. A lot of places just have a gas rig and synthetic smoke, and it's hard to get anywhere near the same level of environmental, conditions. And that's a difficult. We'll come on to that in a minute. This is going to turn into a long conversation. I can feel it already because I want to have that. So let's acknowledge where we are. So we're at the Fire Service College, one of the best playgrounds for firefighting in the UK. They have the privilege of being able to burn pretty much all times of the day. To my limited understanding, they've got a residential estate near them now, but it doesn't limit them because they're on a big open air field, lots of clean air swirling around it and all that sort of stuff. So this is one of the best places you can come for carbonaceous burns, and there's a very clear divide, of the incident side and then the dirty side, and very, very good BA centre that they use here as well. A lot of services don't have this liberty anymore. Like, give me the arguments to and from and against of, because people say, well, there's no need for me to put people in there and give them all the toxins and contaminate them unnecessarily. We can achieve it with a gas, rig, synthetic smoke. And I'm like, smoke, it's a completely different smoke. It doesn't behave the same. It sits down in the room. And also, because we operate in steel containers, this thing I like about West Mids, brick built here, brick built Lancashire, a lot of brick built, training in a demo box, in my mind, the clue's in the name. It's for a demonstration of incipient to progression to flash over to decay, to watch it, and you can do some demonstrations there of dance enables and carbon monoxide flashing over and all that sort of stuff. It's not, for my personal opinion, and please call BS on me or whatever, it's not to then build a H block and go in and try to do firefighting techniques, because the actives and passives, the unit will behave very differently. I agree it's good if you've got it, but I think the best ones I've seen personally are brick built, because that's the environments that predominantly we're training for.
Yeah, it probably goes back to your point earlier, isn't it? What does it take to make a safe firefighter?
Yeah.
Versus potentially somebody who really wants to hone their craft.
Yeah.
And I think that's the nature of the beast of where we're at. Really, as a sector, people have made sure that we got safe firefighters, and that's got to be paramount, isn't it? But there are varying ways we can then improve upon that. And I think you're right. Brick built or concrete built is probably the best way to do it. But
do you think there's a place for gas rigs?
Yeah.
Okay.
For me,
it'd be harsh for us to say no.
Personally, for me, when you look, and especially when we're thinking about carcinogens now, when you're training a new recruit, and we've both spent a lot of time in training, that actually you can concentrate on a lot of the skills which doesn't involve the fire. Okay. So progressing, getting to the fire, managing hose reel, all of those other skills can be done in an LPG facility.
Okay.
The carbonaceous side of things, for us, is an essential role, but we drop that onto the end of the course where it consolidates all the learning up until that point.
Okay.
So you don't want one building for all your training course. You want to take to several different buildings to actually mix it up a bit. Otherwise, you're just following a pattern. So for me, there is a place for it to get the skills and actually progress, especially somebody off the street, somebody new to the role, to actually learn not everything all at once and actually give it in dribs and drabs so they can slowly pick up the skills. And then demonstrate it in a carbonaceous facility at the end of the course as a demonstration of competence.
We're going to get into the bowels of the challenge over the weekend, but there's two more points, and I'm sure we're going to sprinkle these across the rest of our conversation. But I do want to cycle back to pulsing, and also I want to ask you about the death of the BA shuffle. If what it is. Because we have members of the public listening as well, so we'll break it down real simplicity. And I know firefighters will roll their eyes when we break it down, but just so everyone stays with us along this conversation. Talk to us about what the BA shuffle is. Talk to us about why we think we do it, and talk to us about whether you believe it's a hard and fast rule or if it's just a tool in the toolbox, dependent on the environment.
This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Gore-Tex Professional Fabrics. Now, we all know the working environment of a firefighter is filled with challenges. We face serious risks on the job, such as heat exhaustion, burns, physical and mental stress, and we frequently come into contact with high levels of toxic chemicals. Now, I've been wearing Gore-Tex for nearly 2 decades on the front line, working in hostile environments, tackling challenging incidents from firefighting to water incidents and in urban search and rescue environments. Gore-Tex have a well-earned reputation for protecting professionals in the fire and emergency services through their family of highly innovative, waterproof, breathable moisture barriers that exceeds global performance standards and are trusted worldwide. Gore-Tex, going further together.
So let's start with what it is. So effectively, it looks like a bit of a ghost walk, I suppose, in some respects. It's somebody literally shuffling along, testing the ground with their feet, and waving their backs of their hands in front of them to again test.
Why do we use the backs of hands?
So we don't grab the nearest electrical cable that's come down on us and have a lovely great shock. And I always remember that the way I've been taught that. So that's what it is in essence. Keeps us safe in an environment, and obviously it was developed when we didn't have thermal imaging technology.
And there's a combination of, I'm thinking Telstar House and cable entrapments. I'm thinking people falling through floors in, I think Leicestershire was their last, Bob Miller was the last death they had, fell through a few floors. So what we don't want to do is layer all of the debriefs on top of all of them and say, in order to avoid all of these fatal outcomes, we need to do all of these things all of the time. Because they can, in my personal opinion, really decrease your effectiveness, your ability to make progress, and your efficiency in, closing down a fire and putting it out in a 30-minute window. So I think the BA Shuffle has its place. What's your thoughts, Mark?
It goes back to technology for me. We taught the Shuffle as, for me, it's a worst-case scenario.
Okay.
So you've got a default to drop back to. So if you've got a clear environment and you can see, because you've got visibility and not smoke, then the requirement to do that shuffle is going to be limited.
Yep.
If you haven't got that visibility and our technology has failed, so our thermal image camera's battery has gone flat, then having the ability to default back to a basic safe system of work for yourself, I think is important.
I think that's because that's the ethos of the fire service. We're there for everybody else's bad days.
Yeah.
So everything we put in the fire service, I certainly found in my career, we always go for that. Well, what if that technology fails? Yeah. What is our fallback? What's our resilience? Because we always need to be resilient because we're the last port of call for some people in some dire situations.
We're expert problem solvers. We've got a big red toolbox, and you've got to apply it to an imperfect situation and come up with a solution. But like you say, when we saw the birth of the calculator, you still needed to be able to do long multiplication, but you wouldn't do it on a calculator, then just go and check it with long multiplication at the same time. You'd go, well, the calculator says that, I'm just going to go with that. So when we then started developing our firefighting techniques and following flow paths, and we had the revolution of thermal imagery, I think it is a necessity for recruits to learn. But I don't think when people come back for reaccreditations as a competent firefighter, if they choose to take their own dynamic risk assessment and not adopt it beyond the first room of origin, or the first compartment, then I don't see a problem with that personally. But I still personally see, when I travel around the UK, a lot of instructors seeing it as a hard and fast pass fail every compartment. They must be doing a BA shuffle, I'm just like, help me understand the why.
As long as you're clear about what you're looking for when they come out for an assessment. Are you looking for base skills because you're looking at that disaster recovery almost situation, or are we looking for you to what's the current state of things? As long as you're clear, I don't think it's a problem really.
It's justification, isn't it? You've got to be able to justify.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's where perhaps the water's a bit muddy in terms of if you're looking at a candidate who's not using a tick and they're not doing a shuffle and they haven't got a safe system. But if they're using tech effectively and they're making quick progress, then they can justify that action.
Take me to firefighting techniques. Gas cooling, straight stream, the fog of that. And again, we're not preaching as three people upon high as the gods of firefighting. Just from our personal interpretations, and again, we won't mention any teams, but let's give some indications of things we've perhaps seen over this last 24 hours. Not necessarily the good, the bad, and the ugly, but just what we've seen work as good practice in the fairly heavily loaded carbonaceous incidents that we've seen.
Water application is key, isn't it? But it's that way it interacts with the environment you're in.
Yep.
We see a lot of teams that are really good at it, but they haven't actually controlled the ventilation of the property they're in. So all of a sudden, all that water now is steam in their environment. It's how you interact with it. Yes, there are
anti-ventilation first arrival. Saw that with a few teams yesterday. Very nice. Close the compartment down. Start collapsing that triangle whilst you set up your incident ground. And then people go, but you might then cause a backdraft to develop. But you're going to do good door assessment, door entry procedures, so you'll overcome that. but you might snuff it out in those 2 or 3 minutes while you're doing your information gathering. Anti-ventilation is still, there's a wide spectrum of how that terminology is interpreted across the fire services as well, though, and it's not something that I always think the Americans do this very well. The Americans do lots of things badly, and I'm sure people see all the social media and go, what the hell are they doing? They're all going to kill each other. Truckies go in first, do a quick search, find a room of origin, find any casualties, close the room down. They'll have a small water application with them, and they do anti-ventilation. Close it down, they say it's on the second floor, third compartment on the right, and then the engine crew are setting all the water up, and they'll go in and they're specifically going to attack the fire. We would never send somebody in without a hose reel. You know? Which I'm not even sure about that hard and fast rule of you not going anywhere without a hose reel. And I'm like, well, I don't know. Personally, the competency of a firefighter is, again, a very, very wide spectrum. And you only need one person to get it wrong for everyone to point fingers and go, what the hell were you doing? You killed that person.
The key is really not training robots, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because you can't be a robot in a fire environment. You've got to be able to apply what you know. And there are a range of techniques, and some are better than others, potentially, depending on the research and depending on what conditions you're in. But you've got to apply what you think's best, but know the reaction it's going to have, or at least recognise the reaction it's have.
Did anybody take a heavier weight of attack than a hose reel yesterday?
Not on my venue.
Okay.
So everybody did extended hose reels because of the size of the building, and a different array of techniques inside depending on conditions that they saw. So some were gas cooling, some were just direct cooling.
Because these are big buildings.
Yeah.
Now, in the briefs that they receive, and again, we're not going to give the scenarios away, but in as broad a brushstrokes as you possibly can, because some of it's written on the website anyway, what's the sort of scenarios that these people were going to?
We changed the scenario, but we can tell this year's scenario because it's done. So this year's scenario was a shopping arcade.
Okay.
So the scenario was security guard has heard some voices coming outside the building with only one point of entry, but we've got knowledge that there's people inside and there's a fire because he was met with the smoke. So limited information initially, and then the assessors will release more information if asked the right question. So
incident commanders listening to this, they're going to a shopping centre where potentially is a confirmed fire that this person has seen smoke issue in. Have they seen flame, the security guard?
Not flame, just smoke, and it only came through as an alarm activating initially.
So there's no smoke without fire. I'm going to a shopping centre, I'm thinking high fire loading. I have pictures of Marks and Spencers in my head, of racks of coats in Woolworths.
So that was the thing. So if they asked the additional questions, then the top floor is an open plan. Okay. So that was House of Fraser type of that sort of shop.
So high fire loading with the ability for spread.
But downstairs there were smaller units, and that's your sort of if they don't.
And where is the fire known to be?
So we had a fire on the ground floor, but because the people in there were setting fires, we also had a secondary fire upstairs.
So if I take that in my head and I go, so I know he's suggesting there's a secondary fire. The building is telling me similar signs. I can see smoke issuing from ground and first. Paul Grimwood's width, length times 5. If I'm thinking I've got that open plan, first floor with high fire loading, what flow of water do I think I'm going to need for that? It just surprised me that no one, and I get why they didn't take a main jet, because it would have significantly slowed them down, and they're trying to stay within that 30-minute window. And they all, not all, but a lot of people achieved. Did every team fully extinguish? I don't know.
No, it varies throughout the teams.
Yeah. A lot of them are taking that size up option, so they've got the information. 3 smaller units downstairs, right? Weight of attack, especially with a lot of teams now got 22 mil hose reels, which is a good weight of attack. I think they're taking the attitude, right? It's persons reported. Yeah. Let's go back to the old adage. We'll take a little bit of risk here. Let's get in, see what conditions are. A lot of ORCs now are very much saying, "Here's your brief. Yeah. But if you need to change it, let me know. Give me your rationale, and you've got my permission to crack on and do it because you're my eyes and ears in there." And then they can make that decision. All the teams had got covering jets and 45s ready. Yeah. So actually, they've got a backup to come out and swap out if they needed to. But they've gone for that, savable life.
Did you see many variations in the ways the hoses were made up? Because we've seen some Cleveland methods, some Denver methods. We've seen some services adopting some pretty cool stuff. I went and spent some time in Manchester and Lancashire, where they're getting a bit more creative in the way that they stow their hoses. Did you see much of that on the fire grounds?
Yeah. I think most services have got their own way. We personally changed ours a long time ago to give options.
Yeah.
So we've got the Cleveland rolled, the Dutch rolled, standard. So, and it's normally a case of whatever the crews feel is the most effective for them to use.
There's a few Denver methods out there as well. There's just whatever they think suits them.
So we had 19 teams, 20 teams? We had 21 booked, didn't we?
Yeah, we lost one last minute.
So let's talk a little bit around that and the frustrations of the committee to put on a great event and give as many teams an opportunity to come as they want to, and getting people to put their hand in their pocket early so we don't drop out too soon and all that sort of jazz.
So I mean, it wasn't a frustration. We lost one at the last minute because it happens, unfortunately.
Yep.
For us, we would like 21 different services.
Okay.
That's the goal. We're on about 16 services, and then the other 5 will bring 2. And then the issue for us is actually getting them booked in early enough. So because most services want to run their internal runoff, know the team that's going to come, and then ask if they can have a place, which pushes it to sort of August time.
So what are we looking for next year? What's the goals? So what do we like for people to achieve? This episode is brought to you in partnership with MSA Safety. Today we have them to thank for the improved firefighter safety through connectivity in their brand new connected firefighter system. At the centre of the connected firefighter platform is the MSA M1 SCBA with telemetry. That integrates straight in with the Luna system, which is a wireless all-in-one device creating an independent search and rescue network, providing edge detection, enhanced personal thermal imaging, while simplifying post-scene reporting and data retention. All of this then plugs into the FireGrid system for cloud-based connectivity, real-time information, and data-driven decisions for the incident commander. MSA are truly taking massive strides in the future of improved firefighter safety through connectivity in the brand new MSA Connected Firefighter platform. Now back to the show.
We'll probably give the example of what we do in our service. So we run a runoff because we generally have 6.
What does that mean?
So we run an internal runoff because we've generally got 6 or 7 teams in our own service that want to come to nationals.
When you say an internal runoff, because people...
It's a mini version of this.
So, we run a mini version of the BA Challenge over 2 days.
So you invite a variety of stations or watches, put out some internal communications. Yeah. We are preparing for the National BA Challenge. We invite crews to come on this day, and they'll get a detachment, or
so we tend to do it tail end of April-ish time.
Okay.
So we ramp that communications up around January, do our own internal runoffs and give some awards for that, and then effectively they know who the winning team are, sort of May time, to give them a couple of 3 months to actually practice, hone their craft a little bit, take the feedback they've had from our runoffs.
I think that's incredibly rare. That level of preparation is very rare.
West Mids have done that over the years. South Yorks have done it over the years, and maybe not so much recently. But it's starting to happen. I think we're looking at North.
So when do we want people to first start reaching out to NBAC and committing?
As and when, really, because we do get quite a bit of interest.
Yeah. What month?
January, I think, is
January
when we'll start to launch.
Yeah,
again.
But in terms of regional stuff, I mean, we're always available. So, I was contacted by several services this time just for teams meetings, for a bit of advice if it was first time entering a team, and that's what the NBAC is there for. It's not just for the day; it's actually the sport and in the run up to it.
Yeah, but you guys do all this in your spare time, for God's sake.
Yeah,
there's.
But there's a passion.
Can't set yourself on fire to keep everyone else warm. Can't pour from an empty cup.
It's within reason, isn't it? But we have got. Don't forget, we've got not 14.
We finished training at 11:30 p.m. Are you free for a quick hour's Teams call? We're on nights.
Mark said we've got the resource of all the national assessors, so actually we can, if nothing else, point them in the direction of other people can assist.
Kick it out in the WhatsApp group. Who can jump on with whatever Shire this afternoon for an hour or so.
And that's how we've got other, Mark's been and done some work with Gloucester, we've done some work with other services over the years, and that's how we've got them involved. Just sort of gone and talked, if nothing else, just spent an hour with the team and talked them through what it is.
What skin do they need to be putting in the game? What's the numbers for the services? Let's be transparent. And these may change for next. But what was it this year? What did people have to pay to send a team?
So the team cost was just over 2,000.
Okay.
But that covers.
What do they
everything.
Get for it?
So for that, they get the Friday night accommodation, they get Saturday night accommodation, they get the silver service meal.
Which was lovely. Great speakers, lovely wine, lovely drinks.
It covers the T-shirts that they get to take away and actually promote it in service. It covers the awards we put on for them.
The rest of the meals for all that period as well, to be fair. So the bed and board, as it were.
That's it. And then obviously we get the sponsorship from Drager.
Yep.
And the sponsorship from Draeger
Surprised
goes.
you've only got one sponsor.
Oh,
I think the podcast might be able to help you out with that, because we have a lot of sponsors listening on this. Now, of course, you have a breathing apparatus commitment already. Would there be any challenge for a PPE sponsor? I don't know if the college would have an issue with that. College haven't issued any PPE for this, have they? Everybody brought their own.
Yeah, everybody brings their own service, bring their own PPE.
Because just to confirm, that NBAC sits separate from the college, isn't it? So it's its own organisation. Mm-hmm. So just a corporate message for a second. People that might be interested in sponsoring the National BA Challenge, whether it's hose manufacturers, branches, telemetry, PPE, helmets, whatever it might be, hydration companies, I don't know what. There's lots more opportunity. Are you guys looking for support and partners and sponsors?
In the past, we've done a bit of it in the past. So we've had some sort of sponsorship come up. And
I know it's a headache talking to sponsors.
The problem is it's limited time. We used to have we had a couple of branch manufacturers.
Yeah.
But in terms of, you saw from last night, from the time we go down and have the meal and the awards, there's not a lot of time to capture the audience. No. And then we're out in the fire ground during the day.
You need to start half an hour earlier.
Yeah.
and get a compare just to bounce up all those sponsors, because that's what they want.
It's always something we're open to sort of, it'd be great to have some more support.
All right.
The more we can grow the challenge, the better, really.
Yeah.
But.
Well, we'll put some details under this for people to reach out, probably via email or something like that. So all the teams arrived Friday night. We had a briefing.
Yep.
What happened there, and then what was a kick-off on Saturday?
Go on.
Friday's the team briefing. Effectively, we do a bit of a draw.
Yep.
Just to keep it as fair as we possibly can.
Yeah.
So that the teams are picked from a hat, effectively, digital hat these days.
Yeah.
And they come up, get a chance to pick a venue. They don't know which venue it is.
Yeah. So these are just coloured to start with.
Yeah, just colour
and
coded.
then the assessor team assign a building later on. You guys are there all day Friday, load in and check in and drill in and setting everything up.
Yeah,
and all
all
that
the
jazz.
venues have been set up. The assessors have arrived at sort of lunchtime on Friday.
Yeah.
So we've all had a standard setting. We've been around all the venues. They all know the scenario, so they can make it as
So
consistent.
for people that have been to the college before, we used NDA, NDB and commercial.
Yeah.
They are the three premises on this site that allow for standardisation, all the same travel distances for each team, same fire loading, same casualties, same briefings. Now people might be thinking, but commercial's got a basement. In the scenarios that we ran this year, there was no basement. It was acknowledged to the arriving crew that don't worry about that. There's no basement. Don't worry about that. Don't have to start adopting crazy procedures, because driving up that ramp in the truck, you can very quickly go, oh, hello. What am I walking into here? Because there's a reticence even to drive into that. When someone's waving you in and you're like, are we going to get stuck in somewhere I don't want us to be now? But nobody struggled with that, which was good, because it's horrible if someone
communicated well, isn't it? It's the same for NDA. NDA, you could turn up and think it's a high rise, so we have to script it that actually anything from the second floor is all boxed off and not part.
Yeah, and you guys did a good job actually putting up sort of makeshift smoke curtains to stop too much fire smoke spray, because you don't want them pulling in going, bloody hell, it's coming out the sixth floor, and you're like, what?
We do go to a lot of effort to try and standardise the venues to the point that we measure the travel distances so they're within a few metres of each other. There's very little difference to them. I suppose the one thing we always say to the teams is, if you think you know the venues here, you'd be sorely mistaken, because we do make sure we change them as much as we physically can. And we have built other walls before now. And you just change the layout. So our ethos is always treat it as a real job, pretend you've never been here, and you'll do well.
So when people were arriving at these incidents, I mentioned there about makeshift smoke curtains. What did we see in terms of ventilation control? Take us to the spectrum of positive pressure attack, PPVs, smoke curtains. Did we see the deployment of? I know a lot of crews got a fan out. Did we see?
I certainly the full range. We had definitely on my venue. I was on commercial. We had smoke curtains deployed.
Okay.
Anti-vent in the front door was deployed.
Yeah.
We did have a full PPV attack on a couple of occasions.
Did you?
Yeah.
Nice.
It's tricky in those buildings.
Do people think that? And again, though, this is tough because people go, well, that's not fair, because in whatever show, like London are only just bringing in sort of positive pressure attack phase 3 PPV now, so they wouldn't necessarily do it because they haven't been trained to do it. But that's where you've got to say to people, look, you're operating from your own services, and there's only so far we can extend the standardisation and quote-unquote fairness. You've all been trained as competent BA wearers, just because your service doesn't use
Yeah, we go a bit further than that.
Okay.
So when in marking criteria under ventilation, we set out as assessors right from the beginning that services won't be penalised because they don't use PPV.
Beautiful.
Whatever they use as if it's natural ventilation, negative pressure ventilation, whatever they choose to use, they'll be marked accordingly on it.
Okay.
So you won't lose marks because you're not trained to put a fan in. But if they use the ventilation techniques that they are trained in and they use it effectively, then they'll score high. And that goes across the board. So the teams who are very proficient and go in with a phase 2 attack do well if they've done it right.
Yeah.
And the teams who will locate a fire compartment and get a jet out the window and use that effectively, they'll score equally as well. So it's the
We did see a little bit of
way to do it.
hydraulic ventilation yesterday, didn't we?
Yeah.
That was quite nice, actually. I remember doing it as a recruit a million years ago, the crib fire in the middle of a room and playing about with different cone settings and going, oh yeah. But I don't really see it used very much anymore.
Yeah,
but it is
really
effective.
Yeah, really.
Very effective.
The team here at the podcast are extremely excited to announce our brand new partnership with Patrol Store UK. Patrol Store has been serving the UK's police, fire and emergency communities and first responder sector since 2008, providing leading brands such as Hikes, Magnum, 511, Nebo, Op Zulu, Highlander, AKU and many, many more of our favourites. They are now also supplying bespoke uniform, PPE and station workwear to fire services around the UK. So for all our listeners that are part of your USAR, your HEART team, your ISAR team, your armed response teams, your fire investigation, your NALO, your hazmat and all of the training departments that have got your own budgets, be sure to get the absolute best for your team at a realistic price by contacting Aaron and the team at Patrol Store and referencing the Firefighters podcast. Patrol Store will also be taking part in our listener competition giveaways as well as providing unique discounts to podcast listeners. So for people that are always asking about Hikes boots as an example, that is one unique discount code that is coming to you very soon through Patrol Store. We've also got some incredible bags. I mean, the Op Zulu bags are a game changer. So you know the really Gucci and expensive tactical black bags that everyone's using in CrossFit workouts and taking to the gym and taking to stations? Well, they've basically got that, but it's made better and costs less, because they're not slapping some Gucci expensive brand name on it and it's giving you what you want on a first responder salary. Be sure to keep your eyes in the notes of the episodes for links to unique offers and discount codes. And if you're looking to buy well and buy once, be sure to get in the notes and head over to Patrol Store UK. Now back to the show.
Our marking criteria, to start with, we don't publish them.
Yep.
We very much keep that because what we have seen in the past is potentially teams think there's certain things they've got to do, and it's very
don't want
much
to perform
not
to a
about
tick sheet.
Yeah, we're absolutely not about that. It's about them treating it as a realistic job and applying their techniques and their service procedures against it. Then we will quite often have a chat at the end. You know, what did you do X? Oh, that's my service procedure. Okay, that's not a problem. We'll mark you accordingly against it. So. Yeah, the sheets
Unless
are.
there's an assessor there from that service and they go, no, we don't do that.
Yeah, there's always a bit of checks and balances.
You always go in with no helmets on. No, we don't do that in service. No. He just forgot his. We had Anna Steck. Let's be fair if we didn't acknowledge some wonderful CPD that people have got over the last 24 hours as well. So Anna Steck got the invite. Anna from the University of Lancashire, done a lot of work for the Fire Brigades Union. Very impressive lady in toxicology academia. What was the thought process behind inviting her, and what was the sort of feedback from her session? I loved it. You know, Anna's coming on the podcast. She's a fantastic speaker. It's
been amazing. The feedback from the crews has been superb. I think it's a bit of an eye opener. It's something obviously we promote best practice in NBAC. So we brought in a marking structure both for Fireground and for the BA
for the decon straight after
and that's part of it. Now it's not always the opportunity, but where there is opportunity to do some as part of that Fireground, then it's scored against it, and on the back of it seemed really fitting to get Anna over to actually do that as part of the CPD. And last year, unfortunately,
she came of her own volition as well, which is really nice. We didn't have to pay her to come, which is important to acknowledge because a lot of these are paid. She will be paid to go places because she's a very, very proficient speaker. But I think she sees the importance that NBAC does, the sort of collaborative, inclusive environment that you create for so many fire and rescue services. It's a really great way for her to hit lots of influential people from lots of different services. And it really shows the passion that she has for her work, that she came out of her own time to do that. And I think think it's important to acknowledge it because I know she gets so much hate from from PPE manufacturers. She's had some horrible letters and threats and things like that. And she's just an academic, not just, but she's just an academic pointing at a fact and going, well, you've asked me to look at this bottle of water, so I've put it under a microscope and here's what I found. And now you're offended by it because it doesn't fit with what you were doing or the financial model that you've set up or whatever. That's not the driver behind what she does, and it's great to see the work that she does with the union because effectively unions, they're just trying to put people first.
And we've just tried to spread that awareness, and it's not about necessarily doing X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
But again, you've got to be aware of the impact of the actions you're having and what you're doing.
Take us to the performances. So I know I'm pushing now, and we'll try. We can edit little bits out if we forget. What were the performances? We'll just go through. Well, we can acknowledge anybody that you want to acknowledge. We give awards for three criteria. Four. Sorry, it is 4. What awards do we give, and what was the performances of the team? Let's acknowledge some winners.
So we've got each of the disciplines, obviously.
Yep.
So we've got the incident command, the fireground, entry control operative, and the BA.
Okay.
So that's the disciplines that are assessed, and talk a bit about the scoring, I think.
Yep.
So to equal that out. So the point scoring goes, there's 100 marks available for the incident commander. There's 95 marks available for the fireground and the entry control operative. And then for the BA crew, they get up to 230 marks because there's 2 of them.
Nice. Yeah. Okay.
Because it is a BA challenge at the end
BA
of the
challenge.
day.
Yeah.
And there's 2 of them in the building, so actually the marking for that. And then
that's a really interesting insight. I think people will be interested to hear that. That's good. Okay.
So, and in terms of how we mark that, so when we're marking the incident commander, then the marking scale is 1 to 5.
Okay.
So if it's a something stage critical, then obviously the mark goes down. If it's done something really, really good, then you're up in the 5s. Whereas the BA marking is 1 to 10. Because what we found over the years is separating teams is very difficult.
Yeah.
And actually,
I tried to discipline myself not to look over the shoulder of an assessor yesterday and look at the marking sheets because I wanted to take everything on face value. But sorry, this is really interesting.
Well, what it does, it allows us more manoeuvrability on the marking to separate when one team does something slightly better than someone else. And we are sometimes talking about progress made, fires extinguished, ventilation. It can come down to actually you got 1 casualty, the other team got 2 casualties, and that's not all it's about, please. Don't think just go in and grab the casualties and leave all the fires burning.
But I said to people last night, like, less rush, more haste. Do you know what I mean? Moving with a sense of purpose, not running around like a headless chicken, but marching to the beat of a different drum is what you see in the differences of those that came 3rd and 2nd to those that won it. You know, it was almost a seamless handover from one member of the team to the next. There was so much sort of symbiosis happening on the incident ground when I observed some of those that actually won, like Gloucestershire. I was on the incident ground when they performed, and it was a lot of poetry in motion. There was a lot of really, really seamless interaction between the crews, and it looked really, 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 really good from where I was.
I've just checked our scores. So at the 20 teams, they were split. There was only 100 points between all of them.
Wow, from the best to the worst, but from the highest performers.
The 20th to the 1st. Wow, only 100 points in it, and that just, in fairness, shows the standard, of what's out there in the British Fire Service.
Yeah.
And bear in mind, this is the first time some of these teams have come to a venue, anything like this, and the first time they've actually represented the service and turned up.
Well, Welsh, Dominic, so they organised the Welsh Firefighter Challenge. Dominic's much better than he thinks he is at a lot of things. He's very self-effacing, very self-deprecating, and they long old drive all the way from Wales, and I was so impressed to see their performance. They were so great, and they had a lot of little isms that I think went in their favour. There's a lot of just different ways that he engaged with the occupant or the person that presented on the incident, and there was lots of little techniques that they had. And I give somewhere like got a teardrop out. They got a teardrop and a chinograph out and started, noting down pertinent information and using that as a sterile way to communicate it to the teams, and that could be deep. And I just thought, and that's only one poor example, but I was like, there was lots of little things where I was like, very good, very creative, very effective. So some people, it's the first time.
That's a perfect example where a team doesn't need to roll up with only specialist equipment for the challenge. Use what you've got on the truck.
Yeah.
You can win this challenge with a standard fire appliance from anywhere in the UK.
Yeah, don't rest on your, we haven't got the latest fan. You don't need it. Yeah, we've only got one smoke curtain. They use 3. It doesn't matter. Yeah.
And the best practice comes in as well. I mean, the amount that even our own service has benefited from what they've seen here. And actually, and some of the feedback which goes on the back of it is some really good practices.
Yeah,
go on.
I'll give you an example. I used to run an on-call unit because I was on call as well as the whole time, and they came to the challenge. Yeah, and they picked a job up. We had some they didn't know where the address was, so one of the appliances had gone down a cul-de-sac, and it actually turned out to be the wrong address. They were about to turn in as a second appliance to that, got the updated address. They managed to whiz to the address. By the time the other appliance had got itself free from the cul-de-sac and got to the job, they got there, got the hose reel out, got the coverage jet. 2BA were under air and about to walk through the door. They just got their trade honed, and they just got that interaction as a group to be able to feed off each other and get that flow.
Flow state. I forget what book it is when they talk about flow. I'm going to fail to remember it. But yeah, that's what it is when the crews get so well drilled together. But even some of the winners, like people said about Gloucestershire, well, they must be on the same watch. No, they're not. All 4 individuals work on completely different watches, so you can't rest on that one and go, well, these people have been trained together every night shift for the last year. Not that at all.
Ever heard the quote that true leaders are readers? Well, we believe this is true. Listeners often ask where we go to keep our finger on the pulse of what's happening in the sector globally. So there are a few key publications which I encourage you to go check out. Now, if you're looking for insights on disaster management, fire protection and firefighting, for us, we go to Asia Pacific Fire Magazine. And when you're looking for the latest on the Middle East fire protection industry and fire services, it's Gulf Fire Magazine. And our quarterly check-in is with International Firefighter Magazine, reporting to municipal, industrial and fire training professionals. Now, next up, and widely accepted to be the global voice for passive and active fire protection, this is a good one. It's International Fire Protection Magazine. And finally, and perhaps the most relevant to our predominantly UK audience, I'd strongly suggest subscribing to UK Fire Magazine, reporting to the United Kingdom fire protection industry and fire services. We're really excited to announce that after a long-standing relationship and mutual respect, we've now partnered with MDM Publishing, who bring you all of these essential publications. Because in a world of change, the learners shall inherit the earth, while the learned shall find themselves perfectly suited for a world that no longer exists. Eric Hoffer said that, and I believe he was right. So keep growing, keep learning, and keep yourself in the know and at the cutting edge of what's happening globally by dropping into the notes. And as a gift from the podcast, you can actually subscribe to any of these publications for free using the link in our notes. Now back to the show.
So we've got 0 to 10 for BA. We've spoken a little bit around incident command. Talk to me about Fireground.
Fireground works very hard.
Yes.
Yeah. The fireground is a very physical job because they're the only free person to do anything.
Yeah, so therefore they're doing everything.
Yeah. And then when we put a curveball or something changes, then that's when the dynamic stage comes in. So you can have a list of items to get off the truck, but ultimately when the incident commander goes, I need you there, I need this done, I need this, I want a secondary escape, I need casualty coming to the door, then they've got to drop onto it.
Sam Cushing, I've got to call him out. The most firefighter-looking firefighter that was probably in the room last night. Stoic as anything. Ugliest bloke I've ever met. A close friend of mine. No, he's lovely. Sam has got a really bad knee injury at the moment. He's just come back on the run. He injured it at the British Firefighter Challenge. Tore a ligament down the side of his knee. So he's safe and he's effective and he's passed his fitness records and all that jazz. But that... And it's not saying, well, he can sprint faster than anybody else. It's not that at all. He moved in a concise and deliberate manner around that. He and the entry control officer were interacting. He was on hand and visible to the incident commander at all times. Tiny little things like when I saw him putting out the covering jet, it was specifically just to the left of this barrier. The way in which he flaked it out, he went back and moved the ladder another 6 inches to the right, and there's not a lot that was left on the truck. He got the flipping environmental grab pack out at one point and put it next to one of the cones, but everything was cordoned, wheels were chocked. Just tiny things.
Well, it is little things like that. I mean, we picked up on one of our teams this year, put a wedge behind the wheel, and the assessor's like, "What's he doing there? Yeah. The truck ain't rolling away." Yeah. But I had a chat with him after. He said, "No, because when I use the other hose reel from the opposite side,
I don't want it to
stops, it jams the wheel." Just little things like that.
Yes. I mean, he's ready for the what if.
Yeah. And that's the difference with all the firegrounds out there are really good, and everybody works absolutely their socks off on it. And like you say, almost empties the truck onto the fireground. Yeah. But it's how it's laid out. It's how it makes it flow. I mean, the good teams leave that pathway to the entry point, not being crisscrossed with hose. They've got everything.
Hose reel comes off first. Then when they're doing the covering jet, bang! I'm lifting the hose reel. It's going underneath. I'm flaking it out the way. It's not going to jam. It's charging under control. So many things.
And they've almost got that bigger appreciation of the fireground, as well as the incident command has.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
I always say as the driver, that's why I still believe like people should go firefighter to driver to OIC, in my personal opinion, and feel free to disagree, but because you effectively become, half of an incident commander, because you sat in the front and you're their best mate on the way to every job. They're talking to you about their tactics, where they want you, how they think the job is going to go. And also, you get to stand back a lot and watch, and you get to see what good looks like. You get to see where all the pitfalls are, and you get to tighten all the sort of loose screws on the incident ground, because you can see everything that needs to be done. And that's why I think that progression through driver to incident command is such a crucial one. But some incredible performances, not just from Sam. We only mentioned Sam for people listening because he was given the award for winning it, but some really, really, really impressive pump operators. Really impressive.
And it's pretty much as physical as the BA. You take the heat out of it.
Oh, yeah.
But you're cooking in your own PPE still.
Yeah.
They are working really hard.
So take us to BA. We started with it. Let's finish with it.
Do you want entry control operative?
Sorry, I apologise. Yes, please, let's.
So not as physical, obviously.
Yep.
But in terms
Crucial
of...
role.
Yeah, absolutely. The link, and we see it sometimes where if that's not on par, then that communication is lost between the team and the incident commander. And they're all busy in their role. So just a missed message or a miscommunication is all it takes to actually send the whole incident a different direction. And
the discipline not to start helping out the operator, and going, God, they're working, absolutely on their chin straps, and I feel like I'm just stood here,
But they've got that key role in it. They are stood there, but they've got that ability to stand fast and see the incident, and almost act as a set of eyes and ears for the OIC as well.
Yeah. And what I loved about the Gloucester team again was she actually, when she noticed there was a change in wind direction, she chose to move herself. She moved the engine control board of her own volition 10 feet, confirmed it with the incident commander. Tiny little things like that. It was located perfectly the first time, but the situation had changed. They'd started structural firefighting. There was a lot more smoke issuing from the property. The wind had changed. Little things like that that make those good to great sort of engine control officers, isn't it?
Absolutely. And again, we talk about the safety system of the board and actually keeping an eye on the crews and being that lynch. And so occasionally we get that distraction. Yeah. So sometimes due to necessity or doing other roles, we have seen the entry controls maybe pick up a little bit of casualty care, which straight away that's when you start to see the cracks appearing.
Yeah. And you can see it in, you can imagine that being part of the debrief when they say, at 16:02, the entry control officer was seen on CCTV stepping away from the entry control board to assist in X. At that point, a distress signal, it's just like, you can read it in your head before it's even happened. You're like, well, you're doing a very crucially important job. It's hard to, like you say, steadfast discipline yourself.
And I think it's worth noting because, we can have a whole podcast, I'm sure, about it, about riding fours and riding fives. But ultimately, there are a lot of services. Our service do. It's been in for a long time. We ride fours, but the challenge is about crew of five. Yeah. But a lot of teams ask us, well, is it okay to use rapid deployment? Well, look at the criteria for rapid deployment. Look at why you use it, and it is okay to use it in certain circumstances. Because if there's a safety critical task that you want the Echo to do to help get that team in, save a savable life, why not? But it's that balancing point. You can't stay in rapid deployment for 30 minutes. No. You've got to bring those control measures in.
You've got the resources available to it,
and do that. So it's, again, the good teams will see it and judge it. It's not a guarantee that the Echo's rolling straight off and just standing by the board for the first for the entire 30 minutes. The first 5, they might be working really hard, helping getting the team in, and then they sort of take over.
100%. Who else have we yet to acknowledge before we go to BA? Let's move to BA.
I think that's the disciplines,
Okay. The BA teams, ultimately the pinnacle of what we're here to look at and practice. Obviously, they're only one part of a successful team. We saw Gloucestershire take it for a second year again. Male-female firefighter team, really, really exemplary set of individuals. Not just about them, but let's talk about the breadth that we saw as well, because again, it was getting that tempo off. The winning team, Gloucestershire, again, ran up straight in, anti-ventilation, small things like that. What were some of the little nuggets of good practice that you saw from BA wearers, either internally or externally?
If you're a regular listener to the podcast, then chances are you are big into your own personal development and the development of firefighters around you. So I wanted to remind you of our mobile app Drill Book. This is a free training and development resources made by firefighters for firefighters. Heading on to Drillbook, you will find incident debriefs, radio messages, knots and lines, quick reference guides, quizzes every single day. We've got useful links to the ERG, to Web Rescue, to Jessup, Euro Rescue, 10-second triage, National Operational Guidance, and not to mention our daily quizzes where you will find questions on extrication, casualty handling, breathing apparatus, fire development, water rescue, rope rescue, you name it. It is the go-to resource if you've got a spare 5 minutes on the firehouse to develop yourself and those around you. Not only that, if you're looking to get into the fire service, we've got advice on there on interview questions, interview answers. You can build your own questioning in there. And again, remember, this is built by firefighters for firefighters, so you can add your own drills in there. You can pick the drills that you find the most favorite. There is literally hundreds of training ideas, hundreds of drills in there. Remember, this app is absolutely free and it grows every single day down to the contributions of our thousands and thousands of users. It's freely available on Android, Apple, and you will find it in the links for this podcast. Remember, it's called personal development. The clue's in the name. You've got to work twice as hard on yourself as you do on the job. So always be growing, always be developing. Now let's get back to the show.
I think because of the scenario this year, the tac vent options were limited, so there wasn't as many as we've had in the past.
Yep.
So that brought another challenge for the teams, because there wasn't an obvious vent on the ground floor.
No.
So that meant extinguishing fire traditionally rather than with ventilation. Which
means you're always going to be walking into it as well. You've always got a bi-directional flow path and it's going to hit you in the face.
Yeah. And it's, I think it was the management about that, especially for the teams that I assessed, is not exposing yourself to too much of that heat and actually slowing down a little bit in that compartment. And the feedback is actually, if you rush that too much, then you're just hitting that and you're just
careless.
Firing that
you
around.
might be getting dangerous now.
So it's about using that protection.
I think one of the key things I saw was their involvement from the moment they roll up.
Okay.
So it's not, right, once I'm in the building, it's all about me.
Yeah, because some people do, they're like, I'm the BA team, I need to keep myself nice and chilled and I'm going to listen to this commander, I'm having a good look. The rest of you lot crack on with stuff because I'm kind of the star player, I'm going to go in a minute, so don't bother me.
And we've seen BA teams been involved in the 360, potentially around the building sometimes. That's not always...
So Lancashire do that, actually.
Yeah.
One
Not
of their BA
possible,
teams got off with a thermal imaging camera and went walking round whilst the incident commander did the questioning.
But
great.
Get the size up of the job. We'll start working out with your thermal imaging camera. If you've got 2 thermal imaging cameras, a lot of services have now, great. But if you haven't, get a good look through the OICs. Well, they're borrowing yours.
Yeah.
Get that size up of the building. Yeah. Because it's all very well going, I'll just go and commit, and then you get to the end of the staircase and I've run out of hose reel.
Yeah.
Hang on, you were just as responsible for sizing up and going, actually, we need to extend off the bat here.
And I said this to a few people last night at the bar who had sour grapes. And and this particular team, I won't make it too specific, but they were all at least safe to command. I won't say what ranks they were, but they were saying, I was going to wait because I'm supposed to wait, and I need to do the incident commander's plan. Otherwise, I'm going off and I'm self-deploying. I said, no. With respect, you're all safe to command. You've all been looking at the same building that person's been looking at for the last 3 minutes. You know what information they're likely going to get or not going to get because someone is being intentionally vague with them that they're questioning. And you've already heard the brief. I mean, even if you're sat at the station, you know there's going to be one of 3 things they're going to say to you when you go through the door. They're going to say, follow a flow path, go left, go right, or find a stairs. There's going to be limited things they're going to tell you. So I said that doesn't really hold weight. There's lots of things you could have been doing and not technically self-deploying, just setting up a scene of operations ready for it.
Teams outside calling out signs and symptoms of fire behaviour.
Yeah.
What I can see. Can I see smoke under pressure? Where am I seeing it from?
Yeah.
Well, what's the colour of it? All those sorts of things. So they're just getting in that mindset, not waiting to get through the door and then, right, my job starts.
Yeah. You mentioned about not charging straight at the fire. I always talk to recruits because when I say time distance shielding to somebody, they're like, oh, yeah, you mean like hazmats, radiation? I'm like, yes, hazmats, but more specifically radiation, because what is radiation? I says, radiation is heat. That's a radiator in the corner of the room. They're just radiating heat. So have that in your mind when you go into that building. Time, don't want to be in there for as long as I need to be. Distance, don't need to stand on top of the fire. If I can see the fire, put the fire out. Don't need to get on top of it. And shielding, like you're saying, behind walls, behind doorways, out of flow paths. Have those same templates in your head when you're going in there. Because, yes, it might be coming straight at you, but it doesn't mean you've got to stand in it. No. Do you know what I mean? It's having that sort of mindset when you're going into it, and that was usually a good framework for me to think about it in. So when we were in there, I think every single team rescued at least one casualty.
Yeah, on my venue,
Yeah.
Yeah. Went back in. The vast majority managed to extinguish, but there was 2 fires in every incident.
Yeah, so most, I think, got the ground fire out.
Okay.
It's difficult, obviously, because the fires, you're having several fires during the day, so there's quite a lot of embers at the end of the day.
Yeah.
But in terms of the water application, I think it's fair to say they've extinguished the same fire the first team would have before progressing. Anti-ventilation, and then made their way up to the casualty, which was on the stairs, and then casualty back out. And then depending on air consumption, some did a set change at that point.
Talk to me about a set change. Because some people don't like this. You never do that in a job. I've done it. I've done it as on call. I get, in a London example, where I've got 17 trucks here by now. Okay. And also, no, I want half an hour, I want an hour's rest, and I want a litre of water before I go back in. Okay. But we did see it happen yesterday in a couple of examples. Didn't feel inherently dangerous to me, but
there's no hard and fast about it. We have seen teams go, that's not our service policy, we can't do that.
Okay.
That's fine. Your echo and driver can wear.
Yeah.
Oh,
and we've seen that, and we have seen that.
Okay, here we go.
Yeah. That's a perfectly valid thing to do. You're not marked.
Yeah, because if you acknowledge that and you go, look, guys and girls, worst case scenario, they don't manage to extinguish before they go. I want you two with a set ready on that salvage sheet to do a quick handover on the entry control, and you'll be going in as a second team. Because you'll be fresh, you'll have seen and heard it all on the radio. Okay, you won't have got inside eyes on it, but I want you to be donning as they're doffing and have that handover.
Yeah. So the marking sheet doesn't say you have to do a set change. It doesn't say you have to do 2 wears. Yeah. If you don't do it,
team that won didn't have a set change.
Nope. No.
They did it all on one set.
Yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely.
So it is interesting, but I know people will hear that and go, "Oh God, are we teaching bad practice?" No, not at all. If there'd have been a second truck, no, they wouldn't have gone back in. I'm sure they wouldn't have.
And again, welfare is a massive part of our scoring as well.
There was a very specific verbalisation, and some people checking physical indicators for people, bits of hydration with electrolytes and all that sort of stuff, whilst people were changing sets. So yeah, it didn't become dangerous at any point, which I think is crucial for people to communicate.
It's about applying that professional judgment to it. There's no hard and fast rule. I think a lot of services at one point thought they had to do a set change to come to the national challenge. I think it went through a phase of that, but we've got away from that to say no, it's not. It's your judgment. Could be different wearers. Could be you just manage your air consumption. Obviously, there's different sets out. There's 9 litres out there, 6.8 out there. Yeah. It depends on a lot of factors. There's not a hard and fast rule.
So let's get back to acknowledging some winners. So we've said Gloucestershire with the pumping, Gloucestershire with the BA, incident command went to Welsh, entry control went to, my mind is escaping me, we'll give it a second.
Entry control went to South Yorkshire Central.
South Yorkshire. Good. Was there any other performances we'd like to acknowledge? Any other particular good practice that we liked? I'd like us just to swing around for a second and acknowledge the people that are not present at the moment. Some of the other committee members, Michelle, Leanne, lots of the important team members that are part of putting this on.
Oh, there's so many of them, isn't there? In terms of our,
we'll fail to remember all the assessors. We're not going to bother all the assessors.
I think it's important to.
Some was there last year though.
Say again.
Some was there last year.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
We've got a lot. We've got the committee, myself and Mark and Becky and Michelle, and Mick obviously retiring this year. Like you say, Leanne and Paul run the fire station for us.
Yeah,
it's just absolutely vital. And there are more assessors than we can possibly mention that actually help run it.
Mick's last year, this year.
Yeah.
Mick's last year. Yeah.
So who's Mick for people that don't know?
So Mick Fox, he's been with the committee he's been at NBAC for well over 10 years as well. Massive part of developing it and pushing it forward, and where we are today is because of the dedication and time he's put into it. So yeah, it was very sad for his last year. But he's moved on to pastures new and will enjoy his retirement.
We also acknowledged at the beginning of the ceremony last night a colleague that unfortunately passed recently that was really enthusiastic, pivotal part of National BA Challenges history.
Yeah, Ian Revell. Certainly Mark and I have had a very close relationship with him over the years because we've done an awful lot of stuff with him. It was absolutely tragic set of events this year, but we really wanted to sort of acknowledge that because he's been to the challenge, he's been to the regional challenges. Again, he's just one of those people in the background. We couldn't have run it without him.
Yeah,
and so it's just really
unsung heroes.
Yeah,
who are now sung, which is good. So are there any closing thoughts we need to leave in the ears of the listener? Let's recap on the plan for next year, expressions of interest. Let's reinforce those dates, and I will do my best to put them in the notes as well.
So the first thing we'll need to do is to confirm the date for the national event.
Okay.
So we'll do that in the next couple of weeks with the Fire Service College.
Cool.
As soon as we can secure that date, then we can get some comms out about when that's going to be. And what we'd like to do this year is to actually get services to reserve a spot earlier on, which will just be a simple onto the website, reserve your spot, and then tick a box if you want a second team. And then we'll do a cut-off at the end of the July.
At that point?
Yeah, we can invoice.
Do you think
but
you're paying 50% or paying the whole lot?
We'll probably wait till after April for payment, but I want to list the teams so I can invoice in the start of the financial year. And actually,
I think we should at least have a non-refundable 50%, because people might push back on the whole payment, or just ask them for the whole payment, whatever. But the worst case scenario you want, like you say, is turning teams away, and then those teams that have paid nothing dropping out.
Yeah, it's always a tricky thing. That's why we'll push into the financial year to make it easier for services, because they know their budgets.
Yeah,
and we can get it out. January, I suppose, is the thing for us. Get on the website in January.
Yeah,
and we'll get the expressions of interest out and get people.
Start those regional conversations. Put those comms out in your service. Get a station together. Get some training together. Start putting a team together. Get that buy-in from your senior leadership. Get that champion in your service that believes in it from middle management. They're all busy with the HMI and disciplinaries at the minute, but hopefully they can find some time
and we brought on
to make us good at the job.
We brought on 3 new people this year into the subcommittee.
Okay, cool.
So the point that we've actually spread them out around the country, so effectively we've got regional reps around the country.
Okay. Who are they? Let's acknowledge them if we can remember them.
So we've got Paul Marks from LFB, who was in a team before, and then is now on our assessor team. And we've got Stu Mayo from West Midlands.
Yeah, I know Stu.
He's been here for years, and he's doing our conditions.
Nice.
So he does the condition setting for us with all the experience he's got. And
Alan Hall,
from
Yorkshire.
Yeah,
Yorkshire. Barely understand a word he says. Lovely bloke.
But again, keeping that link in with Yorkshire, we'll have to lose him, Mick. So what we don't want to do is not have a representation from Rashid. So
we want that diversity of ideas and tactics and strategies and application from all over the UK. Guys, I think it's an absolutely incredible event. It's been an absolute privilege to be here this year. It's been on my hit list for at least 5 or 6 years. It was a real privilege to come. I sincerely hope we'll be able to come and join you in the future and celebrate some future winners. But thanks so much for a great event, and thanks to the rest of the team that aren't here. And we'll see you next year.
Yeah, no, really appreciate it. Yeah, get yourself on the website. And I suppose the one thing to end on, it's a safe space to come.
Yes.
And show your professionalism.
100%. Love it. Cheers, fellas.
Thank you.
Cheers.
The Firefighters podcast was created to recognize, acknowledge, inspire, and hopefully even motivate these incredible individuals who have chosen to be part of the first responder community. Our drive and purpose is to create a legacy resource for the current and future generations of firefighters and first responders. We get some incredible feedback from listeners and guests, and as the podcast grows, our desire to create longevity and sustainability means we are asking for the support of our listeners. If you want to support the podcast, if you want to get discounts to our merchandise, hoodies, clothing, coins, patches, tallies, and also access to all of the incredible documents get shared with us from our podcast guests and sector leaders, then please head over to our Patreon page, and for just £3 a month, you can support the future of the podcast. Please finally hit that follow, subscribe, or rate button on the platform you're listening, and wherever you're in the world, please support your emergency services responders, and thank you for listening.